Good afternoon. Welcome back to JTC Report. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different here. This story's been flowing around the political media for a bit now. Over the course of the past couple weeks, there's been word about Ben Shapiro and his company, The Daily Wire, having rumors of layoff, internal conflict, and turmoil. I really want to pin down a couple things about this story specifically. The reason is why. There's a lot of stories talking about the cuts to staff and some of the internal divisions. This one's from The Independent. Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire cuts 13% of staff after reports his media empire is collapsing. Now, Ben Shapiro, for anyone who doesn't know, was a conservative commentator, really big around 2015 to like 2017. Started as a never Trump guy. Now he's on the Trump bandwagon. I think for a few reasons we can discuss, but these articles have been flowing around from all the different outlets talking about these recent layoffs, but what I'm not seeing in the media is exactly why. These articles talk about his feud with other large right-wing voices like Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson alike, and I think it goes deeper than that. I think there's a contempt that Ben Shapiro has shown for the American people, the normal working American people, that isn't really talked about in these articles. So I wanted to go ahead and show some of that off, some of his greatest hits here, and really kind of show a montage, essentially, of why I think he's actually failing. I don't think it's just poor business decisions. I think he's turning off just about everybody that used to be his fans or could be his fans in the future. So let's take a look at some of those examples I put together. I think you guys will really appreciate this. So this has been Shapiro on trigonometry. This one went pretty viral, so there's a good chance if someone's been tracking this story, they've seen this example of Ben being completely out of touch with the struggles of normal American people. Let's take a look.
And also, I think more broadly, it's not about affordability. We have trained an entire generation of people to believe that if their lives are not what they want them to be, it's the fault of systems, as opposed to decisions that are in their own control. And politicians absolutely have a stake in selling that. A lot of people in our industry have a stake in selling that. It makes people feel good about themselves and bad about the world. And the reality is, if you want a better life, you should feel better about the world and worse about yourself until you actually, go do the right things.
I broadly...
And this is sort of the overall flavor of the gist of his positions. It's never, ever the fault of systems or larger forces. Everything is directing blame towards you, the working American person, normal job, struggling to get by. And that's sort of his general outlook on everything. And I have a few other examples that goes deeper into each specific issue. And Ben will take the unpopular side on almost everything. Let's take a quick look at the next one here. This one is the one that really caught fire. I just have to remind you guys of it, though, if you haven't seen this. This is rich coming from Ben. Watch this.
And then if you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities. Again, that's not saying that public policy can't change. I think it can, but I think that the solutions being offered are untenable.
What?
The reason this one went viral, for anyone who isn't aware, Ben Shapiro is a massive Zionist, which you can have that position. I'm not even gonna criticize him for that, but he is absolutely in favor of America sending tax dollars, the tax dollars you work for, to Israel to defend them in the middle of their war. And this interview came out in the middle of the conflict, and he did not even think about the irony of telling Americans, if you can't afford where you grew up, you should move. You don't have a right to be there. Go find a job somewhere else. Yet we should be obligated as a country to send all of our tax dollars, send young American soldiers to go defend his preferred country. And again, the fact that he didn't even recognize the irony of that, it shows how out of touch he is. He's totally not dialed in. That should be obvious to anybody before saying that this would be absurdly hypocritical and something that we would be easily called out on. So There's example number two of Ben being out of touch, but it's not just foreign policy. It's not just kind of wagging his finger at the young Americans who are having a tough time in this economy. He also takes a bold stance defending AI data centers. Again, you're going to see a trend defending every issue that the American people can't stand. It's AI defending sending our money overseas, but not helping people here. Check this out. Here's a clip right here defending data centers.
If the United States were to heavily restrict AI, not just in terms of preventing its gravest harms, but restricting the development of AI, or if there were to be a political party that attempts to prevent the building of data centers, not for any sort of understandable economic reason, like, for example, make the data centers pay their fair share of electricity production, which I think is a fair argument. If really there's a broad scale movement to destroy the AI industry overall, out of either some sort of misplaced agrarianism, the idea that we must all live in villages free of AI, which of course is not how things work.
Not how things work. I love how his only two stances are either promote and celebrate AI data centers, or we have to go back to living in an agrarian society with no technology and no development. Those are the two options he gives. There's no middle ground. He acts like regulation, sensible regulation, isn't even possible. That any regulation is going to send us back to the Stone Age. And this is the thing. The priority is on economic growth, not the actual prosperity of normal Americans. He just wants to see GDP go up. That's his idea of success and successful economic policy. But yeah, let's let him keep talking and see if he digs that hole deeper.
In the modern world, everybody in a village in the United States is still using ChatGPT. Or out of a deep and abiding hatred for capitalism, or the generalized belief that capitalism rots the human soul, as opposed to, lack of traditional institutions preventing the rot of the human soul. If we lose, China wins. This is not a vacuum. Okay, it is not as though if the United States just forgoes AI, magically we continue to have a burgeoning, wealthy economy, and also China just goes weapons down.
We had a burgeoning, wealthy economy, much more so before AI ever became a conversation. And this competition with China, listen, no, I don't know anybody who is against all AI usage. People use ChatGPT, people use Google Gemini. That's fine. I think they're great tools. All people are asking for is a little regulation to where it doesn't wipe out the entire job market and leave all of us without any purpose or any paycheck. And Ben also, by the way, is against any social safety net to pay for people if they did lose their job. So this is the gist of it. You're starting to see him sort of his worldview. It's always your fault. The systems are not the problem. And then he defends those exact systems that are making your life worse because on paper, GDP goes up. That's the problem with Ben. And the examples, by the way, keep going and going and going. And I have another one here. Let's take another look. This has been in the middle of the Iran war. For context, today, we are in the middle of May. It's May 17th, to be exact. This video was posted 4 weeks ago. This one was good. I'll explain it afterward. It doesn't even take a lot of explanation. Check this out.
Again, look at the shifting goalposts. A week ago, people were saying he'll never be able to open this. Literally 1 week ago, he'll never be able to open the Strait of Hormuz. It won't happen. The Iranians just have a stranglehold. They have total control. Weird, because like 10 days later, it's open.
Strait's closed, by the way, but we'll let them keep going for now. We'll talk after.
And by the way, the only ships that are not free to transit the Strait are the ones that we are locking up. Why? I don't know how that doesn't sound like a victory to you. It is a victory, in fact, when oil dives back down dramatically. And we've been told that was the chief element that was somehow going to undermine the war. When Brent crude.
There it is. He was celebrating the Strait being opened. This was 4 weeks ago. And by the way, again, we're in the middle of May. The Strait's closed. There is no signs of a deal. I think just today, Trump rejected the Iranians' most recent proposal. So there's a blockade on the blockade. Iran has their blockade. We blockaded their blockade. So it's closed still. He was celebrating this and thinking, well, look, the war is going great. We were able to open the Strait. And by the way, I haven't heard him correct since it closed again. I haven't heard him come up with a new video saying, sorry guys, I was wrong about the Strait being opened, and it is a real problem. It's totally a secondary question. What happens to America is not his priority. This war, he supports it. because it's good for Israel. And by the way, he can love Israel. That's fine. I don't even fault him for that. But to look at Americans and say, you should suffer economic hardship because I want my preferred country to feel safer. No, no, I wouldn't sign up for that. I don't wish anything ill on Israel or the Israeli people at all. But that's not something I'm signing up for, and I don't think a lot of you would either. And yeah, that's really the gist of it. I just wanted to put some clips together to explain why his company and his empire is collapsing, because he was the hotshot back roughly a decade ago. He was the rising star among the conservative movement, and now he's floundering. And the question really is, who is this for now? Who is this for? His contempt for normal working, lower class, working class Americans is so apparent in these clips, and it would be an hour-long show if I put all the ones I could find in. And this is not new. There were signs of this before. It just really exploded recently. But this is a classic that I love to bring up. So this was in January of 2017. Bernie Sanders, love him or hate him, he tweeted, "People go to the doctor because they're sick, get a diagnosis from their doctor, but they can't afford the treatment. How crazy is that?" How does Ben respond to that? "I go to a fancy store to check out a piece of furniture, can't afford it. That's totally crazy." This doesn't take any explanation of why it's ridiculous. He is comparing medical treatment that saves lives to just going to a furniture store and getting something that's a luxury and not needed. That distills his worldview perfectly. He doesn't think about people who can't afford medicine because he doesn't know anyone who can't afford medicine. He can afford medicine. He doesn't have any family or friends who are probably in that situation. And so that's how he looks at it. And yeah, and just talking about the layoffs a little bit, I'm not celebrating layoffs because good people probably work at the Daily Wire and now they don't have a job in this horrible market. That, by the way, Ben's going to tell them, hey, maybe you should move. You can't afford it here anymore. But yeah, so I'm not celebrating any company failing because good people lose their jobs, and I actually do care about all American workers, unlike him. But that's it. Just wanted to talk about it. It's been flowing a lot in the news recently, stories about the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro, and yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. Any big updates, I'll definitely see if I make another video on it in the future. We'll see what happens, but that's it for today. I appreciate it if you made it this far in the video, and have a good one. Be safe and stay in touch.